Hey guys, this is Mike
And Joe.
from Deepwood Force of Will.
Hey guys, it's been a while.
Yeah, I know. Hey, Joe's back. Hey, how's it
Yeah.
going, Joe?
Been a really long time.
Yeah.
Anyway, yesterday was ARG States. Both Mike and I attended, and we both did really well in our tournaments. First and foremost, I'm going to be going over my deck profile. It was first seeding in rounds with a undefeated record going into top 4. And then top 4, I wind up taking second place behind Mike. We'll go over his profile soon, but for now, we're doing Lumia. This is a take on Aggro Lumia. Lumia Rachel, you know, the good stuff. Lumia is good on her front side, and she also has the backside that has swiftness, so she's a good ruler for aggro in general, and she's good with that stuff. For my deck, I'm running a green-red with a splash of white. The white doesn't really matter, it's mostly for the judgment. But we have 4 Sacred Elves. 4 Sacred Elves to help you with tempo, and mana ramping is really strong in this format for no good reason. Our premier green aggro card is Little Red because it's a 1-drop that can have swiftness, and it scales over time, which makes it kind of strong when you're dropping it on like turn 5 and it's like an 8/8 that has swiftness is kind of ridiculous. So it's very threatening, and people have nightmares about it. To help with the Sacred Elves, I'm running 3 Lorites. This could honestly have been bumped up to 4 in the main deck, but I wasn't too sure how many of the activate abilities I would have seen. I would have, they're good cards and they hit a lot of things. I didn't wind up playing as many Lumias as I would have expected, and it's very, very strong against Lumias. There's other decks that's really strong against, but we don't need to go into it right now. Next is 4 Piggy. This is one of the stars of the show. He's a 2-drop that can produce his own swiftness using strength counters. He also helps build strength counters with Lumia. The Lumia Flicker ability, because swiftness helps get the pig in, and then with swiftness it swings, you flicker it, you regain the strength counters. Next turn you can give your 3-drop swiftness, which winds up going into your big 3-drop, which is Rachel, in Lumia Rachel, obviously. You can also give en masse flying to everything, and there's some quirky interactions you can do by giving things flying or giving things swiftness, and it helps give to the unpredictability of the deck. When I was building this deck, we built this deck before these cards even came out. We were sitting in a burger joint and just decided, how do we make the Lumia Rachel thing? And this is what we came up with.
This is also before Otherworld Dreams was banned, so this deck originally had Otherworld Dreams in it.
Yeah, and the more I played this deck, the more I think people would have absolutely hated me for bringing this deck if it had Otherworld Dreams legal, because people were getting pissed with just Lorites canceling things. Imagine if it was Otherworld Dreams that could just cancel straight cards for 1 will. Ugh. Shuddering. We're a red-green deck. You know what that means? We get the best swiftness resonator for 2 will in the game, which is Sylvia. Sylvia's ridiculous. They play a giant thing, all of a sudden the thing is completely useless and they die, is basically what Sylvia's text says. Can't block, your face is getting hit more. So she's a good card, and she has swiftness, and 6/6 premium stats. Our 3-drop is Rachel. Rachel is, you would think it would be kind of weird in an aggro deck, but guess what? She can search whatever, so she can do whatever, which means she can search cancels, she can search burn, especially burn. If they start getting low on life, and it also, you know, you take away their draws every single time you put her in play, you can mess up their draw or rip away resources that they need. And especially if they're a combo deck, you can remove their combo pieces, and then they just kind of look at their hand and go, what the heck am I even playing for anymore? Rachel's a ridiculous card, especially with Lumia. Absolutely a must if you're going to play this type of build. Next up is Mariabella. It works really well with the Little Reds. You get the Windstones out on time, at a reasonable time when your Little Reds are pretty big and they become threatening. Mariabella can help snowball things out of control and will be kind of your mid-range win condition. In mid-range, you kind of do like board control versus all day, and if you get into the Mariabella stage of the game, your resonance ability with the blast counters can help just ping things off and get your damage through to seal the game. Also, the breeze counters ruin decks' mana efficiency and make it so that they can't play enough things in a turn in order to keep up with your impressive aggression that this deck can output. That's it for the Resonator. I believe it's 23 Resonators, if I remember right. It's 5 sets of 4-ofs and a set of 3-ofs.
22 with the Lorites.
It's 3 Lorites.
And 3 Berry Bell.
Right, okay, good. So as long as we're right. 22. Alright, so next up is the Chance. I think that makes it, what, 18 Chance?
Yep.
Yeah. For Lightning Strike, it's burn, and it's the most cost-effective burn. 500 for 1 will is basically all you'll never need. I was running Fictitious Flame at one point because of the null synergies, but you don't really get down to that much will, and also it's still more effective to do 1 will for 500 instead of 2 will for 800 during a specific situation. There were situations where Fictitious Flame would be better, but Lightning Strike does a good job at dealing face damage and also help clearing off like Sacred Elves and other small minions, early little reds. To assist with that, I have True Blade. Opening Sacred Elf into a True Blade is very, very, very strong, because basically you say, this is my 1-drop, and then my 1-drop kills your 1-drop with a chant, and you still have half a card in your graveyard. Also, if you ever use Rachel's effect to look at your top 3 cards, because you already looked at their top 3 and set up their draws for the turn, you can, if you see one of these in your top 3, you can mill it, gain half a card technically, which is really, really strong. In addition to those that synergize with the Sacred Elves, I have Rapid Growths, and Rapid Growths are really, really good at dodging True Blades and other things that take damage. So using that, it also is a great way to deal damage. 4/4 for 1 is very fast damage, and it can also help with Lumia because her backside has a lifelink ability if you activate it. So you can gain life. A weird card that might not have been expected for most people is a Kaguya's Moonbeam Butterfly. It's the only thing that actually requires a white source in this deck, and it can pull anything out of the deck at will. Most importantly, it's a draw consistency for Rachel. So it's a great card. People don't expect it, and also there are certain games where I would pull like Sylvia specifically out of the deck because it can negate a blocker on its own and swing for game and also take up buffs. So there's a lot of flexibility with this card, and if I ever was like unsure of what Resonator I would wind up needing in my upcoming turn and I had the will open for it, I would search out a Kaguya's Moonbeam Butterfly with Rachel so I could have that flexibility. And also it things the card. And the last card in the deck is Severing Winds. I'm only playing 3 because I wanted 6 cancel slots. I thought that would just be enough, and I didn't really want to maximize Severing Winds because I didn't want to overdraw it. I think 3 was just the right ratio to draw it in, and it helped me in the matches where it needed it, and I would side it out in certain matchups where I didn't think they were going to be playing more than 1 card in a turn. So that's the main deck, 40 cards. Worked really well for me. I would recommend a similar ratio in the future. Next up is Stone deck, 10 stones, as you would expect in most decks. Blasting Waves, green-red. 2 more green-red with the Memory of Reincarnation. You don't always have to take the 300 and to keep it in, but it's there. And if they ever wind up having a way to take it off the board, Molest. Is that the only way that they'll destroy that stone?
Right. No, Barrist.
Barrist. Yeah, if they Barrist it, then you get a draw, sure. Like that'll ever happen. But there's nothing bad about the stone, just green-red. You could play a shit brick if you really wanted to.
Doesn't work with
it doesn't work with Little Red, though. Or
Maribella, yeah.
Little Red.
Well, also Maribella.
Oh, yeah, it's not a green-red stone for Resonance. So, yeah, gets Resonance, so it's a good stone. Next up is 2 Gusting Skies. These are my white sources. I usually hit 1 by about turn 5, and that's about the time I needed it. That gives me the full flexibility of Moonbeam Butterfly for toolboxing my whole deck, and it's about the time that I would be for saying, like, maybe I want to do a Judgment. Last up is the basic stones. I run 2 Windstones and then 1 Firestone. The Firestone sucks to hit during your early turns, but it's a necessary evil because having Mariabella being able to fetch a Firestone, which can either A, deal 500 damage to a Resonator that you need to get your damage through, like a Lorite then decides to try and block, or being able to fetch it and then use that one open Red Will to deal Lightning Strike to the face, is very, very crucial.
It's 11 stones, you filthy liar.
Oh yeah, it's 11 stones. It's alright, 11 stones. Side deck was 15 cards.
Thank you.
There's no possible way I'm lying about that.
Almost cheated.
Alright. 3 Gale Force. Big targets for this is Shooting Star Dragon. Ultra Dragon Shooting Star.
Yeah.
It's the green way of getting rid of it. I think 3 was too many. I think siding in 2 was probably the right way to do it. But during my first day, I actually did not side this in against anyone. There was no one that was like, they're definitely playing Flyers. And the only person that actually did side in did play a Shooting Star against me, quote unquote said, Shooting Star is too slow against this deck. So,
quote, end quote.
Yeah, so that's how that day went. But I did have this in here just basically for that card. Next up is Favorite Spell. Very cheap, quick cast, cancel target spell with quick cast. You could honestly main board these. These cards are so good and there's so many targets to hit them with, especially Lorites. Lorites are everywhere. Every deck is running it. And also pretty much every single chant that's being played that's like really worth hitting is a quick cast. So you're going to find some way to use Favorite Spell effectively. And at worst, you wind up canceling Severing Winds because everything plays Severing Winds because it's basically free. Next up is kind of a niche choice, but it's Last Days of a Powerless Dragonoid. It's cancel target fire chant or remove any type of counters. Any counters means hits any deck. So I didn't really think about decks that wanted to throw counters on them ever. I don't think I sided this in day one. No, not at all. No, there was an aggro deck that I sided in because I wanted to cancel target fire chant for 1. Next up is Heaven Sundering Dragon Palm. I told you I didn't side in Gale Force. This is also a side in that would affect Ultra Dragon Shooting Star. Its first effect is kill a dragon, so for 1 Fire Will makes it gives you a little bit of variety with the Gale Force. Actually, I do want to bring up something with the Gale Force real quick. Piggy, the Hero Pig Hoel, the Hoel's Hero Pig, great Hero Pig. Its ability that says give a Resonator flying by removing 2 strength counters. That doesn't have to target your own board, so if you really wanted to, you can give your opponent flying and then Gale Force it, which did help me sometimes, but again, I didn't use it that much during the day. I honestly can't remember a moment when I did use it, but it was always something on my mind and should be on yours. I did sign extra rapid growth in matchups that are kind of back and forth with board control, mostly in that aggro versus aggro where whoever gets board control and sticks their board presence winds up winning the game. Rapid growth is a game killer. Next up is Destruction of the Portal. I knew that there was going to be a couple people bringing Shayla yesterday, so I was interested in putting something in to stop their lightning caves because I know it helps advance their combos and also hurts me because it has a null effect on swiftness and flying for non-water resonators. Being able to kill it for 2 is a little bit expensive, but the Remnant means that I have the option to kill multiple ones, and it's a will sink, if you will.
If you will.
I sided the 4th Lorite just in case I wanted to change ratios. Same reasoning for the Severing Winds. Against certain decks, certain cancels were better. That was kind of the philosophy that I went into this deck profile with in my side deck. But overall, I think it worked out really well. I enjoyed changing out whenever I think they were necessary. Mostly aggro decks were hurt more by this, but if I noticed the deck was particularly weak to Lorite, I would side more of this in. The final card is one that probably insults people. It's Nyarlathotep, the Crimson Radiance. Basically all it is just for Lumia's Judgment, not the card, but whenever I judgment her. It gives her infinite imperishable and lifelink. Having that as an opportunity against certain J rollers, especially like Keurig Rurik, having him judgment can be very detrimental to my board state. So if I want to get a judgment in and be able to continuously use my Lumia, getting the Nyarlathotep is pretty good, and also it gives me life back, so it's extremely threatening. There were certain matchups. It was also really good against control matchups because they had difficulty killing my J-Roller in the first place. So they take a lot of resources into killing it, and then it has imperishable. And the lifelink also means I probably won't be dying. So that's the deck. That's about it. Do you want me to go into how my day went?
Yeah, absolutely. What were your good matchups, bad matchups, and what would you potentially change about the deck?
Well, let's go into rounds first. My first round was against was it Sherry? No, Sherry was round 2. What was your round 1?
my round 1 was Sherry.
Yeah. Shoot. Wasn't Freyla. No, it was IU. Round 1 was IU. First game, I drop turn 1 Sacred Elf, turn 2 Rachel. He doesn't have a cancel. He kept his whole hand, but didn't have a cancel in it. And he just scooped it up from there because he knew that he wasn't going to progress in his board state from there, and he was already kind of janked on stones. So that was just the IU thing happening. Next up was the Scheherazade. Scheherazade should be pretty threatening, but it wound up not being. I wind up just pushing him out of the game really early with my threatening resonators, couple little reds, getting the Sylvia in early, getting Peggy. He wind up scooping pretty early in game 1, and then game 2 he wind up just having a really bad will efficiency that his cards just couldn't do enough to my cards in order to keep me off the board. For some reason, I don't think he was running Black Tears in his story deck, because that would have really helped him against the little reds, so that might have just been on him. Round 3 was Shayla? Yeah, it was Shayla. You think so? Or do you not remember? No, it was Freya.
It was Freya. Oh, okay.
Yeah. Freyla. So it was Dark Elves. The guy was running interesting things like Final Battle. The deck already deals a lot of damage to itself, so you would assume that an aggro deck would already have a really good advantage against it. Game 1 goes very quickly. He winds up not being able to play much, and he just gets stomped out by aggro. Game 2 goes a bit longer. He winds up playing an Abdul on early, but his Freya doesn't deal much damage and doesn't do much work, and that was basically the game. As once I stuck a Mariabella, so we actually went to late game. So up until this point, I hadn't had a game loss yet. I was 6-0 in terms of my games that I played. Going into my fourth and final round was against what was it? I can't remember the
Lumia.
Imel, yes. It was an inverse Lumia deck. Learned a bunch of things about how that deck operates, and I wasn't fully sure on how some of the rulings went, but after I did, it was an interesting matchup. The way I basically played around that deck was just kill the early threats and then make sure things don't inverse if I can avoid it. So overall, wind up working out. I win game 1 decisively without much issue. Game 2, he winds up getting a good judgment off, hitting something that gives his board the Palace of Light, which gives everything +2/+2 while he had a decent board, and then it flipped into the -4/-4 to the full board and hit everything. So after everything was said and done, he flew over me and wound up taking me out before I could get my lethal turn, which was going to be the next turn. And then game 3 came around. We went into time, and obviously I'm an aggro deck. He's Imel. Unless he's going to out-heal me somehow, he's not going to wind up winning the game. So after a couple minutes, after a couple of turns, he's like, all right, you got it. I guess Swiftness Resonator hit in, and he realized he's not coming back. So good game from there. From there, we went to top 4. I faced another Freya deck. This Freya deck was less focused on killing itself because it wasn't running a final battle. It was played a little bit differently, but it was still to the same effect of my aggro's coming in, and this is the game where the guy winds up playing a Shooting Star on turn 3 and is like, this card's way too slow. It winds up dying on turn 4 to my aggro. And then the last round was against Mike, and I'll let you hear that in his deck profile.
No. Sweet. Thanks for the profile, Joe. Any last things to talk about?
If I was going to do any changes to this deck, I think the ratios were actually really, really good throughout the day. It's all about basically the most you get out of this deck is with experience. You have to know when you should play your cards, when you should do judgments. The biggest reason why I wound up losing to Mike in our finals, quote unquote, even though we're on the same team, was basically because I wasn't playing my cards in the right order, and I had a little bit of a learning curve to how I should play against his deck. I didn't have that much practice against it, and he has a very interesting deck, so I hope you're all excited for that.
All right. Well, thank you for the profile, Joe. This has been Mike and Joe from Deepwood, signing out.
Have a good night.